Nice pants.
Thank you, mate.
I like how you've got that. Like normally it's a white shirt, white glasses, black shirt, black glasses. Now you've gone for the contrast look.
Yeah.
I like that you actually put some thought into that.
You don't?
No. Top of the pile, mate. Whatever's at the top of the pile. Right, welcome to Rivals again. Got Sir John Kerwin and Victor Matfield, who's in a different place every week. Let's say tonight's show is brought to you by the letters T, M, and O. JK, you already got a scowl going on. You weren't too happy with the TMO across the weekend.
Well, if you're an All Black fan, you couldn't be too happy with the TMO and the game on Saturday, right? I thought it was a really good game of rugby. I loved it, actually. Victor mentioned a couple of weeks ago that he thought France were the front runners for winning the next World Cup. And if that's their second or third side, they are going to be a very, very, very complete 35-man World Cup squad, which means, to win the World Cup, you've got to have people coming off the bench that are as good as those on the field, and they're certainly going to do that. My frustration was I thought the All Blacks were very good in the second half with possession and tidied up their errors. So for me, the TMO issue is this, right? And I made a drawing for you, right? So does the TMO know different defensive patterns, right? So what happened when the try was disallowed because they said that Palaiasitosi interfered? That was rubbish because the defence was man on, right? So you see that? So Tossi's coming straight forward, but the defender's coming straight forward, okay? So he's coming straight forward into the space. Tossi then breaks and they contact, but that defender had no idea about drifting off. So the other defensive pattern is a drift pattern, right? See that one, Ricardo? Not that you ever tackled in your career, but that defensive line is when you get into trouble because if Tossi's coming this way and I'm drifting and I'm trying to cover him and the next guy off, then I can drift. This situation here, right? That wasn't the case. That was the case. This was the case here. So what happened also was once it got to Geordie Barrett's hands, right, the guy that was supposedly infringed didn't even try and drift off. But Geordie passed it as well. So they scored 30 yards away. There was absolutely no infringement whatsoever in the rules of the game. Now, if Tossi runs forward on the inside shoulder of this guy here, let's say he runs to that shoulder there and impedes him from moving across, even though he wasn't doing drift defence, then I get it. But for me, that was a complete and utter TMO error. Now, the second one with Proctor, what is the rule? Do you know what the rule is, Ricardo?
Yep, no separation.
No separation. There was that much separation. He had complete control of the ball. You remember that? You remember that try that who scored it for South Africa, Victor?
Which one?
Who scored it?
The hooker, Bongi.
And there was separation in that, and he put it down and scored.
What do you think, Victor? What do you think of the TMOs across all games on the weekend?
So on the defence there with John, people must understand defence. I think sometimes to make a decision, I've seen in the past where a guy runs a great unders line. I mean, the defender comes in from the outside. I mean, he hits him on the inside shoulder, so he was never going to drift. He made the decision to come in. He wasn't stopped because of the guy running that line. It was a good line. He was caught with a move or the dummy move. That can never be obstruction because he's on the inside shoulder. And I think that's what they need to understand. I think South Africa, one of the problems why South Africa struggled is because it was such a slow game. I think South Africa went into the game against Italy. They wanted pace in the game, wanted to score a lot of points. And unfortunately, because every decision needs to go up to the TMO, it made the game so slow. It was, again, over 2-hour game. That's what we want to see. The TMO should come in if it's really needed, or they must make the call much quicker. But again, I think two wrong decisions. First try of Jesse Creel, I think he was about a meter in front of the ball. I saw it when it happened in the game. He was in front of the ball. Then they go to the TMO and somehow they don't have an angle and the ref said no, try on the field. They say, the angle's not good enough. You can see it in front of the ball. And then the second one was also obstruction, where Tatuka scored. Beautiful try. And again, in the middle, Oxen share. Yes, he was in the defensive line when they came past, but when the defender ran into him, he was behind the ball carrier. How can you have obstruction when you're behind the ball carrier? And they didn't allow that try, and I think that was just after halftime. And that brought a big change in that momentum of the game as well, because just after that, Italy went and scored. But for me, a bigger problem was the amount of time that they wasted in the game because they went to the TMO almost on every decision. And you just can't get any momentum. You want momentum in a game, you want to flow of the game, you want to make the other team tired, and then you want to put them under pressure. But if they go to the TMO, there's stoppage every 2 minutes, and Italy was slowing the game down, they were sitting down the whole time. I think then you can't get into the game.
So there seems to be a change in emphasis. Rather than just picking up what's clear and obvious, the TMOs are looking almost like forensically for any problem they can find. And that seems to be something that's come into the international season and something we were warned about. Do you think that's good for the game?
Well, I've got two problems, Ricardo. No, it's not good for the game. Exactly what Victor said. So in the last 2 years, everyone, including the World Rugby, have been talking about speeding the game up, right? Speeding the game up,
Yes.
no more dead time. It seems to me that, like, are the chairman and Joel Judge talking to each other? Because it seems to me that the refs are doing what they want. Whereas the whole game said, let's speed it up. And yet the referees this year come out, right? And it's not the referee's fault. It is Joel Judge's fault and the chairman of World Rugby's fault, because they need to send down directives, right? So if the TMOs intervene, it's because Joel Judge, who is the boss, is saying, let's do this. And that's the problem we've got. So I want to know what our new chairman is doing about actually, you said you were going to speed the game up. I mean, you asked Mark Robinson, I'd ring him every 2 weeks. He assured me, JK, that, the committees are together. And they sped the game up. It's so much better, faster scrums. You can hear the refs saying, come on, guys, speed it up. Come on, let's go to the scrum. But then you've got the referees deciding, we're going to be really picky about what we're doing. So we're going to start a 2-hour rugby game, right? That is absolutely ridiculous. So my question to World Rugby is, are you guys talking, or does Joel Judge just get together and say with his other referees, this is what we want to do? And if he's gone with, this is what we want to do, what is our chairman doing about saying, no, guys, we're speeding the game up? You have to take some of that stuff out. So here's what the TMO needs to do. It hasn't worked. The TMO has not worked. What we need to do is get back to the ref making a decision, and if he needs the TMO, he goes up to him. And that's what needs to happen, and it needs to happen fast. Because I don't want to watch another game like that.
I mean, the one thing that irritates the living hell out of myself is, there's a big screen in a stadium. The big screen is there for everyone to use from anywhere on the park. Then they go to decision. Then the referee runs 100 meter closer to the TMO. It takes him a minute about. Then they start, runs him, and that's another 2 minutes. That way, if he was on the spot, there is someone in the TMO that sits in front of the screen. Let them make a decision. And 90% of the time, again, clear and obvious. So if they can't see it on the first take, just go on with the decision that was made. But now we're taking 3 minutes to make a decision. The guys will start warming up again on the side just to get back in. That's part of the game.
The other thing interesting for me too, Victor, is that, the coaches who should be our biggest influence are not saying anything for respect of the game and respect for the referees. And don't get me wrong, Ricardo, this is not about the referees. The referees are doing their job, and the TMO is also doing their job, right? They are implementing what the leadership want. Besides, I believe that TMO not understanding defensive patterns and not actually understanding that rule properly, that's his bad. And, we all make mistakes, so he should get better. This is a directive from above. So this is the chairman of World Rugby and Joel Judge's responsibility, and they are messing with the game. It has not worked. So when are we going to decide that the public are frustrated and, okay, it's not working, so let's just tone it back a bit? It really frustrates me because the product's good, Victor. I don't know if you agree, but when we're playing rugby at the moment, The product is
Look,
really good. They've sped
yeah,
it up. I mean, that French game was a really, really good game. I
it's a
agree. I
really good
agree with
game.
you about the South African game. I mean, your bomb squad turned it into a fart squad, Victor. That didn't work at all. I mean, I wouldn't like to. I wouldn't like to be. I wouldn't like to be in Rassie's camp this week because he'll be pretty pissed off.
Well, that bomb squad's not playing this weekend. They're having a break.
Yeah. But if you're one of those older guys, Victor, Russie's a smart man. So he's played just about his best bloody team and they haven't performed. So now he's got every right to put younger guys in, to put them under pressure. It's actually genius because you don't win. You do win. You don't win well, but then you really get to put pressure on the team. But to be fair,
Yeah,
I thought the Italians were good in the second half. But yeah, the game was slow when we don't want a slow game.
yeah, it's difficult because you must know the Boxers are under pressure. They need to win by 50 points to be a positive result for them. So, I mean, even Andre Pollard with his goal kicking didn't take all the time, was getting back, kicking it, jogging back, but then they run back, and then all of a sudden there's a TMO decision again, and it slows it again. And I think that just puts so much pressure on the team that really want to go out, go play positive rugby if it's a stop-start game. So that's something we need to sort out. But maybe to the point about Rassie, the team got out yesterday, and exactly what you said. He picked a young team. I think he showed to all the older guys, you've won 2 World Cups, but if you're going to a game, your attitude's not there, these young guys that want to do a job. And he's backing the young guys to go out there and do a job. And that would put a lot of pressure on the older players that's won 2 World Cups to say, listen, if I still want to be there for the next World Cup, I need to pitch up because it's easy to pitch up when you play the All Blacks. It's easy to pitch up when you play France. But when you play Italy at home, that's when Russia want to see attitude. You want to see the guys pitching up for every game.
JK, just give me. You sort of touched on it a little bit. A little bit disappointed with you, Victor, not having any drawings or diagrams to back up your stories. But what are the All Blacks going to learn from that first game against France that they can put into the game this weekend?
Well, I think that for me, and South Africa were exactly the same. What happens in your first test match is that you're coming up with combination errors. So, their errors in the first half were not good enough. I think their possession, their movement off the ball in the second half was good. I think the biggest concern for us is Northern Hemisphere rucks versus Southern Hemisphere rucks. I think the competency of ruck, and I think this could be the case in the Lions series as well. Like the Northern Hemisphere rucking is like way different, and I think the French were really competent in that space. So for me, I think the learnings are, we need to be really, really accurate. And Super Rugby, and this is an abstract question, and I know, Victor, you're watching more Northern Hemisphere now, but is Super Rugby as close to Test match rugby as it used to be? And my answer is no. So I think Northern Hemisphere semi-finals and finals is closer to Test rugby. I think they're different. I think they're different sports. I love Super Rugby. It's open and flowing. But is it preparing us for those critical moments at Test rugby? And my answer is no. I
But
think we've
I
found.
don't think, John, I don't think it's just this year. I think it's always been like that. I remember back in 2004 when Jake just took over. We played Super Rugby, we did well. We even went into Rugby Championship or Tri Nations back then. We won the Tri Nations that year. Then we went up to the UK in the wet weather and we got smashed at the breakdown. And then Jake said, listen, we like men against boys or boys against men. We're not physical enough, but it's unfortunately, I think when you play, same thing for South Africa, when you play these teams, especially when they're a bit negative. Remember, France they didn't think they're going to win. They just wanted to keep the score low. Yes, at some stage they said, oh, we're in this game. Italy the same. So they were going at the breakdowns, trying to slow it down. Then you almost can't do only 2 guys at the breakdown. You need to put more numbers in. You need to be there much earlier. So you need to put a much bigger focus on that breakdown. It can't be like in Super Rugby. Sometimes good carry, just one cleaner and you're out of there. because they put a lot of attention to slowing down that ball at the breakdown.
Yeah, so I think for us it's adjusting. Fabian Holland, I don't know if you saw him go, Victor, but I think he's going to be, the next Brodie Retallick. I'm really happy we've got a big body there. You only pick a couple of wingers and then one gets injured after a couple of minutes, which throws that whole conversation about the bench. I think the learnings are, errors. Let's tidy up our breakdown and let's get rid of TMOs so that you score those 2 tries, you win by 15 odd points, and it's a different week. But I think both South Africa and New Zealand won't be unhappy. The coaches won't be unhappy that they had the performances they had. As long as you win, then as a coach, you can psychologically work with your team. So I think both coaches will be secretly happy. Scott Barrett being an injury is an issue. He's a leader by example. He does a lot of that hard grind. So I think they'll miss his leadership. Artie stepping into that space. I think Rico, interesting article in the paper, Victor. He hasn't played wing for 4 years, and he said, "Well, the wing positional has really changed." And so I think the biggest thing for me when I looked at the South Africa game and our game, besides South Africa not performing very well, I don't think, was the pace. Do we have that out and out pace and our outside backs to compete with South Africa? That's why I was really interested about Leroy Carter, the flyer from the Waikato. I thought he'd be in there. So it'll be interesting for me to see what we do if we're going to play a game that creates, more strength from our wingers rather than that finishing speed, because the South Africans look so quick out wide.
And what do you think? Did the Rico Ioane move work or not?
I think he's got a little bit to do. I think he's got a little bit more adjustment to do. I think the wingers now need to be really competent chasing the ball and being competitive in the air. You look at your guys in South Africa, they're so quick across the ground, they're getting to the high ball and competing in the air. So I think if Rico looked at his game, I'm a huge fan of Rico. I think, he's been an amazing All Black and continues to be so. And being able to change at that level, I think his high ball chasing and contesting in the air, they'd want to see some improvement there. And what I'd like to see him do is work a little bit more off the ball and come in and use his feet when the forwards get a little bit tired. But I think did it work? Would he be happy? No. Will he get better? Yeah. I mean, I like Proctor as well. I think Proctor's got some real ability there. And the other thing that really surprised me, Victor, was how Geordie's come back after playing a whole season and was one of the best out there. So, I thought that was interesting as well. And he'll be interesting, if I was, and I'm sure they're doing this. So, if I'm Razor Robinson, I'm sucking Geordie's brains about what you're doing in the Northern Hemisphere, what you're doing in training, what you're doing ruck time, what you're learning, that sort of stuff.
All right, Victor, what do you think the learnings for, I love that word learnings, it's very important, that Rassie's taken out of that test match?
I think, again, like I said earlier, I think it's a very difficult test match for South Africa. We've never been like the All Blacks that go out and we smash teams by 60, 70 points. We do prefer the pressure games. It's closer, where we can actually put pressure on the other teams, force them to play off their turnovers. And Italy didn't do that at all. So they slowed the game down. They kept on kicking the ball. I mean, even when they were 14-0 down, they took their 3 points. So it was a difficult game. And the team that we picked as well, I think that was a team for a pressure test match. This weekend, we went with the younger guys. We've got Williams back at 9. We've got Mani Libbok at 10. Willie Laroo at 15. Those are guys that likes to play the open game. They likes to get the ball into space. Probably not as good as Andre Pollard with his kicking game, putting other teams under pressure. But they can play the game. They can run the balls. I think we will see a much bigger score. I think the one thing that did disappoint Rassie was that bomb squad coming on. Then, maul try, 20 meters out. Italy scoring a maul try against South Africa. Rassie won't allow that. I mean, he'll never be happy with attitude. Attitude is the biggest thing for Rassie. He doesn't mind what the guys do off the field, but once they're on the field, if it's a training field or it's a test match, it's all about work rate and what you put in. And I think, again, if you look at some of the players, individually, they didn't play bad. I mean, RG Snyman came on, 2-3 great offloads that led to tries, but as a unit, didn't work. And unfortunately, for a few of those guys that came off the bench, they didn't play very well in the URC. They're getting older. Are they still good enough? The questions are going to be asked now. So I think they've got a lot to prove. And like I said, Rassie said, listen, I'm giving the youngsters a go now. And if the youngsters do really well this weekend, that will put so much pressure on the older players. And like John said, I think it can be a mind game as well to make sure those oldest players just know, listen, you won't stay in this team just because you won 2 World Cups and because you've got a relationship. I need performance out of you on the pitch. But I like the team that we've picked, especially the backline changed quite a bit. Willie, Laroo is playing his 100th game. I like Caden Moody at 13. I know he's not playing there. He's getting an opportunity next to Andre Estreisen in the centres, next to Amani Lobok. So that combination can be very interesting. That's the same combination that played against the All Blacks just before the World Cup that really did well. So that can be a combination for the future as well.
That's the biggest risk. Your biggest risk when you win World Cups like South Africa have is being loyal to some of the old guys. And, players don't retire anymore. Between World Cups, they retire after World Cups. And, I think 91, we probably had 5 or 6 players that were hanging on to the World Cup and should have retired. I think there was a familiarity from coaching staff and players, and I've seen it, right across the board at World Cups. You try and get to the World Cup with some of these guys, and it'll be very interesting to see if Rassie's got the courage. Because it's courage, because he's a relationship guy. People respect and love him, and it's hard to drop a player who you care for and you think's amazing. But you will lose a World Cup if you take a football team that is just past its best. And I reckon it's the hardest decision a coach has to make.
Yeah, I said this is the year that Rassie will almost have to make that decision. He said maybe 3 or 4 guys that won't be able to make it. Who's the new players that you want to get in there? Do you want some of those younger players to be in the leadership group, or you're going to stuck with the older leadership group? So there's hard decisions to be made, but I know, like Rassie always said, if a guy's good enough, if he pulls his weight, I mean, still, we talk about older guys, but then, I mean, a guy like JC Creel as captain, there's no one working harder than him. He's getting older, but he's still working harder than anyone else in that 13 jersey. I mean, Eben Etzebeth, Lode Jager. I mean, Eben was still in that first line chasing balls. Lode Jager, when the balls went on the ground, he was the guy diving. So I think there's still some of those guys that can do it. Yes, I think Saturday was maybe an attitude thing. And when you get older, John, you know it. It's easy to get yourself up for the big games. Those are not the problem. It's when you sometimes when you get back from a test match, you have to play for your provincial team or your club team, and you're playing on this field where there's like 10,000 people, hard field. Then it's difficult to pick yourself up. And I think this test match was like one of those test matches where it was really difficult to get himself physically 100% ready for the game. And mentally, they thought, listen, they're going to run away with it. And then it doesn't happen in a game. And then it gets difficult. But like I said, for Rassie, he would be into them. And maybe, like you say, maybe he will probably enjoy that he can get stuck into them to show them again, listen, I need attitude from you guys. I'm not going to back you just because you've won 2 World Cups. You need to perform on the field and you need to show me what you can do and that you're still better than this youngsters pushing for your position.
Would he ever change the bomb squad, or the fart squad, as I called it last week? Would he ever change that now? Would he go back to traditional bench if he felt that was appropriate?
I think it's something he believes in. He believes those 5 forwards together makes a huge impact. The question that we need to ask ourselves is, do we still have, let's say, 2 front rows, 4 locks, that's exactly on the same level? Or is there a team and a B team? Because if there's an A team and some of the guys are a little bit better than the B team, then you want to push those guys for longer. But if they really the same level, they compete at the same level, in the week you can't see who's the A and B team, then you can have the bomb squad making a difference and you can give them a lot of time. It was actually interesting this weekend with Japan versus Wales. Eddie didn't change one of his tight 5. He played all of them 80 minutes. They pushed through and they came through and won the game at the end. No replacements there.
Congratulations too, Victor. Buddy, that's a great win, mate. I love when Japan wins. Obviously, with my history with them, I just think it's fantastic. Wales are really, really, what's that? Their 18th or 19th defeat in a row. I think that's a really good point, Victor, because I reckon one of the unsung heroes at the moment for the All Blacks, and a guy who I believe in the last 2 years has transformed his consistency of game, and that's Codie Taylor. I think Codie Taylor is the best hooker in the world at the moment. Not only for his accuracy around his throwing, and I won't even talk about scrum, Victor, because I don't know anything about that stuff, but just around the field, his flexibility, his acceleration. And I always feel that I wouldn't want to take him off. Like, they bring him off, and I just think, why? He looks like he doesn't even look like he's at the end of his game. But I guess that's the sort of stuff that it's all part of tactics rather than fatigue, I guess.
Yeah, he's been playing really well, and I mean, if he's your best hooker and he can go for 80 minutes, why will you replace him? But if there's someone there that's really close, maybe just got a different style that you want to bring onto the field. A lot of the time, you've got probably one hooker that's a bit more set piece driven. I mean, if you look at Ireland with Sheehan and Keller, they're 2 different hookers. So it's all how you want to use them. Can they make a difference when they come off the bench? So, but I mean, Codie is playing really well at the moment.
Just, Victor, give me a little insight into Willie Laroo, playing 100 tests, been a fantastic servant for South African rugby. Just give us a bit of an insight into him as a player.
Yeah, Willie is actually an amazing story. He comes out of a very good school in South Africa. Then he almost, not disappeared, but I mean, he went to one of the smaller unions. He went to go play for Boerland, where most of the players that plays for the Springboks, they don't go that route. I went to Griquas for 2 years just to get opportunity. Willie went to the Boerland, got picked up there, got seen. And I think if you look at Willie, there's probably certain things where people will say, how did he get to 100 games? But he's got a skill set that no one else got in South Africa for a very long time, where you could identify space and he could get the ball to the space, either by passing, by kicking, and he's a guy that communicates very well. So when we played with him, I think he had like the most try assists in world rugby. It was just unbelievable when he got that ball 2-on-2, how he could just pull that last guy in, then put the winger away. And I mean, his tactical kicking, especially attacking kicking, it's unbelievable. So I think in South Africa, he was probably the one guy that could really identify space and he could get the ball to that space. And yeah, like I said, most try assists, I think, ever in South Africa.
Right, I just we brushed over Japan a little bit, but that was a magnificent performance. Great lineouts, actually. I thought the lineouts were exceptional. Probably the key factor of the game. You must have been really proud of that performance as someone that's been involved with the team, Victor.
Yeah, it's great. Just come back from there. They also got a new Japanese guy looking after the lineouts. I work a little bit with him, but the guy Soji that really works hard. He played for Japan as well. But the one thing with Japan at this stage is they're starting to build this side, especially the starting 15, that can really compete with anyone in world rugby. I mean, if you look at the scrummaging, Owen Franks is working with them. It was from a weakness to where they're getting scrum penalties at the moment. They can do long scrums. They back their own scrum. That set up a lot of opportunities to play from first phase from the scrums because the other pack needs their loose forwards in. So, I mean, if you can sort out their set pieces like we've done now, their scrum is really strong. Their lineouts is becoming a strength. Still, the breakdown wasn't great this weekend. There's something they really work hard on. And then I think Dan Bowden is probably one of the best attack coaches that I've worked with. It's really, he looks for opportunities, the flow of the game, how he gets people to run into the ball instead of just standing still. It's unbelievable. So I think they got things in place there. They had to sort out some of the defensive errors from last year. That looked much better. There's more line speed. So, it's just about building their depth now. Like I said, they've got a big tight five. They've got loose forwards that can carry. They've got a very good midfield as well. So a little bit of game management. I thought, and gave my opinion, I thought we played too much rugby last year with Japan, where, I mean, we had the most running meters, we had the most breakdowns, most line breaks of all the international teams, but we lost games. So it's just about where you play your rugby and how you play it and how you manage your energy as well. So that's something I think that was also a big shift in Saturday's game, where they played rugby and how they did it. Just a little bit more game management, but you don't want to go away from the Japanese style. We say Chosoku rugby, it must be quick rugby. That's what Japan is about. So we need to keep that as well. Although the game management, I think, can be a little bit better.
And JK, we talked about Willie Laroo. Just give me a bit of an insight into Michael Leech.
Oh, well, I picked Leechy when I first went there. He was playing at university. Really, really interesting man. New Zealand, Fijian, brought up in Christchurch, decided to make a decision to go and study in Japan at the age of 13. But he went to Hokkaido, which is the northern, up by Russia. And I saw him playing at university, and just, he's got the athleticism of a Fijian. And growing up in Japan, he was incredibly well disciplined as well. So very smart young man, and just worked really, really hard from the beginning. And so he was one of those guys, a bit like Sergio Parisi. When you're trying to build a football team, you get some of these young guys and they're going to make some errors early, but you just play them because they're good enough. So, I played him pretty early in the piece, and he showed incredible longevity, they've left him out a couple of times, Victor, left him out, but then he's just kept on working, and he works incredibly hard, and when he's in your team, you're just a better team. I think one of the great things about Richie McCaw was the ability to change, and I think Leechy Victor has had the ability to also change his game a wee bit, evolve a wee bit with time as he's got a bit older.
Yeah. So I think Michael Leech is one of the guys I've got the most respect for in world rugby. When I arrived there last year, we lost against them in 2015. Knew a little bit about him, spent quite a bit of time with him, and like JK is saying, he's a leader in that country. Everyone's looking up to him. He works harder than anyone else. I had to go and talk to him as well because he wants to be the first one on the pitch. He wants to be the last one off the pitch. And I'm like, Leech, you're getting a little older. You have to manage yourself a better. But he can't. He needs to be there till the end because that's the Japanese culture and he needs to lead from the front. So he keeps doing that. Eddie and them are trying. They wanted to push him into the second row, so I've been keeping him. So he's not a second row; he's a back rower. Let him play 6, 8, wherever you want him. And I looked at his stats this weekend. It was unbelievable. I think he made 19 tackles, got 12 carries. I think 8 of them was positive carries. So he just keeps on playing like a young man. And his decision making on the field. He doesn't make errors. He's a fantastic guy, and that team needs him as a leader as well. When he's in that team, the team is 50% better.
Right. I'm going to ask you now about another team that wasn't didn't overly impress on the weekend, but was up against a really, really strong Fijian side that was probably also disappointed by the TMO. So Australia, how do they prepare for the Lions after a game like that?
I've been looking at Australia, and a lot of Australian positivity has actually been hype. We've been talking about how much better they've got. There's not going to be a whitewash. The Lions, the Lions, it's going to be tough now. So they really disappointed me on the weekend because I was expecting a way better result. They started well. I think that when you look at the way they started, but then they were quite fragile in defence. I mean, Fijians are the best attacking team in the world, right? And Mickey Byrne has got them well organised as well. I think, you spoke about that balance, Victor, and I think that's one thing that Mick Byrne was talking about last year. If you can get the Fijians to play the right balance, they can beat anyone, right? And especially up front, if they can compete up front and stay in the game, they're hard to beat. So I've gone back on my confidence on whether Australia is the team that we all think they are. So, where I think New Zealand and South Africa come away and the coaches go, yeah, look, there was enough real good stuff in there second half. If you're New Zealand, you go second half, we really dominated. We should have won by 20. We didn't. Move on. South Africa, a bit sloppy. We're all over them. Then we let them slow the game down, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I just didn't see a really, really good performance from Australia. So I think that they're in trouble for the Lions series, to be fair, after that result.
Yeah, I always say is if you're a team, you must know how are you going to win big test matches. And I still doesn't know if Australia has found that. I mean, in the Gregan and Larkin area, we knew it was by phase play, quick ball, front foot ball. That's how they play. We know how the All Blacks win. We know how South Africa win. What's the Australian way at the moment? And I think they don't have a way, or they don't have something where they can say, listen, we're the best at a certain part of the game. So it's always going to be difficult. I mean, the Lions are looking good. Every team that they put out there, you think, wow, this is a strong team. So it's going to be very difficult for Australia. I just hope for the Lions series they are competitive, but it's difficult to see how they're going to beat the Lions.
So you've watched the Lions, you've watched Australia now. If you were just gonna let's just put a line in the sand, starting with you, JK, what do you think the series result's going to be based on what you've seen so far going into this test?
2-1.
2-1. So
Yeah.
you think Australia will win a test off them?
I think the Lions will win the first test. I need to see the first test, right? Because I think the Lions, for everything we've spoken about, Victor's so right. When you watch Canterbury play, right, you know how Canterbury are going to win, right? This is the provincial side, obviously. The Crusaders. You know how they're going to win. When they're under pressure, they're going to kick you to the corner. They're going to maul you. They're going to get some penalties. They're going to crush you. When you make a mistake, they're going to, and Victor's right. I can't see that in, in the Australian side. I can see that all over the park in the Lions squad. They've got guys who know how to win tough test matches. We underrate the Six Nations. The Six Nations is probably one of the hardest tactically decision-making competitions to win, right? So they know how to win. And I think that, the Lions will win the series in 2, and then the Aussies will win the last one.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I also thought 2-1. It's always difficult getting yourself up for that last game. We at the same normally make a lot of changes, but I just think there's so much quality, and even if he makes changes for the last test match, I think the Lions might be too strong. So I'm going to go Lions 3-0.
Ooh.
Nice. And what did you think? I mean, obviously the Lions got pushed a little bit by on the weekend, so better test for them rather than running away from it.
I think what Victor said is probably the difference. I think the Australian 15 is, as competitive as can be, but I do think the Lions have 35 players that can actually play at that level. So I think the biggest decision, for Farrell is selection and getting those combinations right, and that's what he'll be working on. I think the inconsistency in their performances at the moment is just understanding that the 80-minute implementation of how Farrell and the coaching staff want to play, and I still think they're thinking a lot about it, a lot of the stuff, rather than just implementing it. And each week as that goes by, if I was Australia, I wouldn't have agreed to all these games. Stuff that. I would have given them a couple of shit games and then kicked their butts. But the more games you're giving them, the better they're going to be, better coach, better,
Yeah, and I still think you'll go back to the island, almost that backbone of the team. I think Finn Russell has showed he will probably be the 10, but the rest of it will be very island driven. They've been successful in New Zealand, they've been successful everywhere where they toured, so they know how to win, just not World Cups, but all the others they know how to. So, yeah, I think they're going to be very difficult to beat because they know how to win big test matches. And I mean, there's quality players from England, from Ireland, from Scotland that you can add to that island team. So it's really a strong British Irish team this year.
All right, just to finish, I want what's going to happen in your team's international on the weekend, and what's the score going to be? Start with you, Victor.
Yeah, I'm excited. The team that they've picked got a guy like Thomas Atoy back who did really well for Bath, probably one of the players of the tournament in the Premiership. Um, we probably got the biggest front row we've ever picked with Thomas, Malcolm, and Wilco Lowe starting there. Two young locks getting opportunity. But the backline that they've picked is very exciting. I think with Marnie there, Billy, Sasha that will come on in the second half, and Williams at night. So I think it's a team that's made more for this type of game where everyone is expecting us to beat them by 50 or 60 points. So I think this will be a good weekend for the South African team. I think the team that we've picked is perfect for this game, and it should be a big, big victory.
And JK, what do you think's going to happen with the All Blacks France? And give me a score at the end.
Yeah, look, I think less errors, Ricardo. I think I really enjoyed the movement in attack off the ball. I think there was a lot of good movement. I think they'll be way more competent. I think the French have got the respect they needed after the first test. I think the All Blacks will win by 20.
Right, we'll finish on that. And at the moment, the rivals are all of us against the TMOs.
I want some decisions. I want a faster moving. The new chairman said that he was going to make change, and I haven't seen that yet. So I want him to step in and start moving about when things aren't working rather than waiting for committee. So he needs to step up into his role because it's frustrating me that we're not moving fast enough when things don't work.
So you reckon all he needs to do is get on the phone, ring Joel and say, hey, tell your TMOs to back off?
Totally. It's as easy as that, Ricardo. It's as easy as that. Pick up the phone. Hi, I'm your boss. Listen, we're being a little bit too finical at the moment. We're being too, let's just back off, big fella. Send the note around to the boys. Goodbye. Boom. That's what Victor would do.
Just give him the right mandate. Let him go. Do it. Fix it.
I know, and one of the things that a great leader will do is lead the way. And we've talked a lot about ice baths on the show. You're leading the way in taking ice baths to the next level. Can you explain what you were doing? Because I think that's one of those places where they put dead bodies.
Yeah. So after Victor inspired me by putting his legs in from his ice bath last week when he was with the Japanese side, I decided to go with my son who does cryotherapy, right? And I first heard about cryotherapy when Warren Gatlin took the whole Welsh team over to Russia or somewhere and chucked them in this fridge at minus 80. So I tried it yesterday with my son. We both did a bit of, he does it for his football, and I thought I'd give it a whirl. It was, very, very interesting, Ricardo. It's a bit scary, to be fair. Wow. Gypsy Kings, that was really different. Cryotherapy. Wow. Woo. I don't think it wasn't as hard as an ice bath, to be fair. It wasn't as hard. It was a little bit easier. Have you done cryo, Victor?
I've done it once in when I played at Northampton, and I also think it's easier to get in because you just walk in, you've got gloves on, then you walk in there. But also, I just did it once, and I said I'm definitely not doing it again. That's me. Thanks for coming. I'll go lie on the beach in the sun. It's better for recovery.
With your brandy and cola.
Yes.